My name is Travis Rice, and I live here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So, I am excited about the opportunity to be able to talk a bit about the gear that I ride, essentially my armor all winter. Quiksilver and I have worked on a number of things over the years. I'm really psyched this is the Highline Pro 3-layer Gore line. This has been years of development, and I couldn't be happier, frankly. Pretty simple. 3-layer is simple, that's the whole point. You ride 3-layer with proper layering underneath for better temperature control. So going out on the resort, I'd have like a puffy or a fleece in between these, and then you just take that thing on or off depending on how warm you are. Bibs, I run bibs quite a bit of the season because digging snow out of your waistline is just old. It gets really old really quick. And straps are always the biggest pain in the ass with bibs. So we went to this kind of soft over the shoulder, which is much more comfortable. Big fan, you know, hydration is the thing these days. Putting water into the actual garment. It is helpful, I use it. Can never be quite hydrated enough. I just literally announced the snowboard a couple days ago. Working on the snowboard for a few years. It's an adaptation from the Orca, which become a really popular directional board. The last couple years we've been learning a lot from the tight radial side cut, wide. It's kind of like a fish. The reason it's called an Orca is because it ain't no gutless fish. It's got whale-tail technology, as we put it. And it's a directional board that rides like a fish, but it's not gutless. You actually have a second joint. You have a second knee with a tail. That's kind of the point. With a just straight like swallowfish, no tail fish, you can't ollie. And you can't, you know, suck up landings, obstacles, features, etc. So we went back to the drawing board, and I had a board called the Gold Member, which was my directional twin, a board that I designed for the Supernatural course up in Baldface. And it was an amazing board, but after riding the Orca for many years, I kind of retooled my thoughts around what the perfect directional twin board needed to be. And we completely retooled the tail on this. I mean, it's essentially an Orca, a tiny bit pulled in because you have longer running length. And surface area really matters with these boards, and so we pulled it in just a tiny bit, not to get too crazy with surface area. And essentially, the infamous component with the Orca board is it's got this almost skate-inspired kick tail. And so we did away with that tail, moved our final contact point about an inch forward to make up for the added volume in the tail area. And this board looks like a directional twin, but it rides like a directional board because the end of the contact, both on the tail camber and on the side cut, end basically where the Orca does. And all of this, you don't feel it when you're riding goofy, when you're riding regular. But when you go and switch, which is what this is designed for, it's totally there, you're supported, it's like you have a second nose. And this board was basically designed for natural selection style of riding. This board's got XC2, which basically is a fancy way of saying camber from the foot to the nose, rocker between the feet, camber from the back foot to the tail. The modification with this, again, is that the board actually ends right here. And all this is just for when you go switch in soft snow. LibTech boards have magnetraction, which is a serrated edge, and the point to those subtle bumps is, essentially giving you more contact points with these pressure points. It's kind of the idea of like a hockey skate. Hockey skate, super nimble, stops super fast because it's about just those pressure points instead of distributing the forces over a very long, singly connected edge. This way you can lose part of the board if you hit bumps or chunder. You can lose part of the board and you still have these pressure points that help lock you into a turn. You know, they say it turns ice into the powder. It doesn't, but it does make it a lot easier to carve and stop on hard snow. You know, graphics is always a huge part. I love being able to work with different artists. This graphic, work with Mike Perillo on, a guy who I've worked on many projects together with. And for years I've been wanting to do a alien board, alien conspiracy board. And lo and behold, this coming summer, we're going from COVID to aliens, so it's timed perfectly. Trying to empower us. They're not scary. They'll tell you they're scary, but no, they're homies. The bindings that I ride, that I co-developed, are Falcors. Named them after my beautiful carbon sailboat because these things are packed with forged carbon. These bindings are a medium flex free ride binding meant to give you the ability to tweak, to bone it out. You know, I'm not riding an X Games slopestyle course. You could, but you don't need that much support, frankly. So this is kind of toned down to like a resort rider, backcountry rider. And the couple key things I really like with this binding is it's got 3 degrees of cant. So what that means is the binding base is actually tilted 3 degrees inward. Same with this one, 3 degrees inward. It's better body mechanics versus having a flat pad that, you know, your foot wants to be in that natural 3-degree position. Totally adjustable, and again, the big thing for these is hyper lightweight. This is my DC double boa boot. The noteworthy components are the flap, which it's actually really nice to see that a lot of other boots are now adopting this flap. We were the first ones to put it on. It's really helpful, keeps your foot dry. The other thing too is the new H4 coiler boas are now bulletproof. You know, I think that was one of the biggest things when people hesitate about boa was that, you know, you could hit this thing and break it off, right? Well, now they've designed it where you can knock the boa off and it doesn't break. It's built to be dislodged and you just suck it back up, turn it counterclockwise 90 degrees, and it pops back in. So that's the beauty of them being impenetrable. One thing that we did with these boots is most people ride somewhat duck or a little negative in the back, and so we've like aerostreamed these touch points on the heel and the toe because those are what dig into snow, and so we've reduced as much as possible, and I would definitely claim that this is, for its size, has the least amount of toe and heel drag for a boot. With hardware, you know, generally speaking, you want to transition from the soft and supple foot to something that's a little bit stiffer and more supportive, like a boot, into a binding that's even more rigid than that, into a board which is the most rigid. And trying to find that kind of flex metric where you're going from soft to the snowboard, which is your shield, being the hardest. That's really when I think people find the most comfortable setups. Why does it matter? Why is gear important? Well, you know, you spend time in the mountains, and the mountains, as beautiful and whimsical as they are, can be pretty aggressive places. And if you're not warm and comfortable, you're probably not having a good time. You know, when you're standing up on top of a run, or for me, like potentially strapping in a few days here to the natural selection course, feeling confident and good about the kit that you have makes a huge difference. Even riding inspired art, having gear that you are attached to both sentimentally and physically, that's when you hit your sweet spot with equipment in the mountains.